Hi, everyone. I'm Dr. Kate Balestrieri, and I'm here with Kayla Tricaso, the Office Manager and Patient Intake Specialist for Modern Intimacy. And one of the things that I ask everyone on my team to do is stay really, really curious about what is going on in the field of mental health, especially as it relates to relationships and sexuality. So Kayla decided to do some research about the NoFap movement because this is a question that we get asked a lot about. What is NoFap? What does it mean? Why does it exist? Who is it for? And
Really interesting. It's a community I had some awareness about, but it was really interesting because I really walked away from writing this with completely new understanding and empathy for this community.
what are some of the stigmas that you think people who are a part of the NoFap movement face?
Some of the major stigmas is this total misconception that they are completely anti-porn, that they're anti-masturbation, and one of the things that I noticed, and that's what I thought too, like the things that based off of the conversations that were being had around this community, I always thought that it was just this group of people that were like very hard fast rule of no masturbating, that masturbating is terrible and it ruins the brain. And it was really interesting to dive deeper into their community and realize that while there are some people that feel that way, that personally make the choice to cut out masturbation completely and to cut out porn from their lives, that's not everybody's experience. There are some people that have had a really enlightening experience where they have stopped masturbating or they've stopped viewing porn for, let's say, a year. And what they call that when they take a sabbatical from masturbating or porn is rebooting. And they talk about, so many people talk about having great experiences when they've rebooted, and then they come back to porn and they've come back with this new awareness, this new education, this new like personal journey that they went on, and they can participate within porn and masturbation in a way that is sustainable for them and is healthy. However, even on their website, they make the distinction that this community will be different for everybody. Not everybody's on the same journey. Not everybody will get the same benefits out of it. Not everybody will have the same experiences. So they make that very clear that they are not anti-porn. They're not anti-masturbation. They just want to help those who feel like that their lives have become out of control due to addiction, compulsive behaviors or addictions to porn and masturbation.
You know, the NoFap movement is really an organization that helps support people in identifying what their relationship to watching pornography and masturbating is, and helps them think through, does this fit within their own value system? Does it fit within their own lives? And if so, they support it, right? And if not, they help them kind of think about ways to reorganize it so that they can really have a relationship with their own bodies and their own sexuality that feels empowered and feels like, you know, it brings them pleasure instead of shame, pain, or fear, right? Do you know how it got its name, NoFap?
Yeah, so part of my research was, I just was curious in like the origins of the name and all of that. So I don't know his name, but it was founded by one guy in 2011, and he started the subreddit called NoFap. And when he's been interviewed a few times, and he took it from a comic strip from I think it was like a manga comic strip in which one of the characters was mmasturbating, but they couldn't show it, so to signify what was happening, they used "fap" to mimic, to be a synonym for the sound. Yeah.
So it's an onomatopoeia.
Yeah, thank you. I couldn't think of the word to use, but that's exactly what it was. That's exactly what it is. And at the time that I wrote this article, they had more than 600,000 users. People, a lot of the members of this community, they realize that their compulsive behaviors or addictions are rooted in trauma, and they're rooted in experiences they've had that were traumatic, or situations in which their view or relationship to their sexuality has been traumatic. the members of this community are people. They're people that are struggling. Like at the end of the day, they're people that are trying to, like their tagline is "get a grip." They're trying to get a grip on these issues that they have, and that's pretty commendable.
It is. It's really a remarkable demonstration of resilience when someone can say, this coping strategy that I have had for a long time that once was really great, it was effective, it did its job. Now it's actually causing more problems than it solves. So maybe I should re-examine if this is a coping strategy that I really want to use. There's still a lot of controversy in the US about whether or not sex addiction or porn addiction are considered to be valid diagnoses. And, I think there's a lot of confusion around the languaging and the semantics of it that gets a bit overcoupled with some of the stigmas that still exist about sexual behavior in our world, especially in our culture. So I'm not even going to try to get into that debate here. Is sex addiction or porn addiction a thing? But what strikes me as so important to really hone in on is that there are a growing number of people internationally who are really struggling with mitigating their relationship to watching porn online. And that's true for so many reasons. It's so much more available on the internet than it ever was in years past, and certainly so much more accessible and available than it is in print. So, people's relationship to anything online has the potential to be so much more compulsive. And then when you add the accelerant of something that's so sexually arousing, it's like, oof, it can be hard for people to rein in that behavior train once it gets going.
One of the things that I noticed when I was exploring their subreddit page was there was really young people on it. One that I just remember, it stuck out to me so much, was a 12-year-old who was trying to seek support because they were masturbating what they claimed 50 times a day. And to know that, like, we give children get phones so much earlier nowadays because we're just always on the go, and it's just our relationship with technology happens so much sooner in our lives than it has in years past. So really young kids potentially have, when their brains are still developing, potentially have access to content they don't really know what to do with or how to process.
Children are being exposed to pornography so much younger now, and with so much more prevalence. And so we are seeing changes in the developmental structures of the brain. And also, when you think about it, when a child is exposed to something that's beyond their ability to understand it, it's beyond their levels of cognitive sophistication, sometimes it can feel really overwhelming in a positive way, but sometimes it can also feel really overwhelming in a negative way. And so herein lies a bit of a dicey situation. It can be very traumatizing to see something so graphic before you really have the ability to understand what you're seeing, why you're seeing it, and that it's a fantasy, and or it could be, something pleasurable in real life. So it can be really upending, and that can even be a traumatic situation for a child. When someone is choosing a fantasy or choosing something that's happening on a screen, there's often a level of fear or avoidance that comes with not wanting to necessarily deal with rejection with a real partner, or not wanting to feel like they're not performing in a way that feels adequate in their minds, or they might feel too engulfed or kind of pressured by the emotional demands of the relationship. And so porn offers an escape with a fantasy partner that doesn't have any asks, right? Never gets disappointed, never fails. So there are a lot of reasons that compel someone to, prefer a digitized version of sexual intimacy over the real life version. But definitely in relationships, porn and masturbation can be a really wonderful augment if both partners are on board, they're aware of it, it's something that they share or understand they do separately, and so they, share an appreciation for. But sometimes it can be a third that can feel like a betrayal, especially if it's a secret, especially if it's done out of anger, and especially if their own sex life isn't something that they're both satisfied with.
A lot of the people in this community describe liking this aspect of their life, liking having pornography to go to. And one of the other symptoms I seemed to notice was that members kept feeling like they had to top what they had seen before. So they felt like the chase of always finding the next thing. It reminded me a lot of kind of how people describe drug addiction, like how people are kind of looking for the fix, and kind of how a lot of times addicts are looking for that same high that they got the first time, trying to replicate that. And I felt like that was kind of a similarity that I was witnessing when going through the community.
Yeah. I mean, you're describing the concept of tolerance, right? When we experience something and it feels really good, and then we experience the same thing and it doesn't engender the same feel goods, we want to get back to those feel goods. And so just like you said, with a drug addiction, it means sometimes taking more or mixing substances or doing it more frequently, because people want that same feeling of euphoria. They want that dopamine that gets elicited in the brain. And the same thing can happen sometimes when people have a compulsive relationship with pornography. They get stuck in the ritual of searching because there's always the hope, the promise of this next video, this next image, this next cam interaction being the one that's going to elicit all of those feel-good chemicals in their brains. And sometimes they get really close, but if they don't continuously increase either the kind of stimuli, right, that they're watching or the frequency, and then their brain can peter out in terms of its dopaminergic experience. So yeah, I mean, that's definitely a sign of it being out of control when someone needs more and more or more extreme to get the same kind of experience. Take on it. This is a community that supports people evaluating sexuality and their own value system. What did they determine to be enough, too much, not enough? What did they determine to be okay or problematic? And then it helps them really build up whatever guardrails in their life will help support that trajectory instead of...
I mean, like anywhere else on the internet, of course, there's going to be toxic pockets or maybe more strict or rigid views. But the portions of it that I saw felt like they were places of empowerment and felt like they were places of support. I think if this community became more understood or even more available or more known in the mainstream, I think we'd have more like stories, more anecdotes. I mean, that's a lot of times that's how we come to understand people. So I would just encourage anybody who is curious about this community to check out their subreddit. It's if you go to Reddit, it's r/NoFap, and it's a really interesting community. Even if you just don't understand it or you want to understand them better, just kind of take browsing the website to just see what they're about, see what their values are, hear people's experiences and stories. I just recommend anybody do that just doesn't really have that much knowledge about this community or wants to understand them better.
Or wants to know if the kind of support that they're offering feels like a good fit for them.